Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the Cabinet meeting. It feels like it was only yesterday that we were here. I think it was last week, and it'll probably be next week. There's a lot going on. But look, can I welcome you? And before I start the proceedings, I've got to bring to your attention some housekeeping matters. There's no expected fire alarm testing today. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, it is real. Please follow the fire and emergency procedures. Leave via the nearest exit. And can I ask that you use your microphone when addressing the meeting, and it's switched off when you're not speaking, and also that your phones are turned to silent. I'm going to move now to apologies. It looks as if everybody's here because no apologies have been received. I think that's right. Mary is coming, but she's representing us at the Freeman Stark's funeral today. So she'll be coming a bit later. Declarations of interest, are there any from any of the members? No. The minutes of the last meeting. Can I sign them as a true record, please? All right. And I will now move to questions from the public. Just to be clear, for people who are getting a sense of deja vu, members of it isn't just one member of the public can ask the question, although it does feel like that in this particular case. Any member of the public can actually ask a question. So I'm going to pass over to Councillor Coker now, who's going to answer a question from Alderman Wheeler.
Thank you, Chair. So I will read the question. The question was, new bus shelters are being installed on the northeast inbound side of St Budo Square. The long-awaited St Budo Square interchange scheme has been advertised as starting this month, February 24. How long are these shelters expected to remain in situ, and what is the full cost, please? So my response, the cost of each temporary shelter is £1,100. The full cost of with installation is £7,400. The shelter by the family butchers will be removed as the scheme progresses in March. The shelter by the taxi rank will remain in situ for the duration of the works until late June. Both will provide passengers with the means to shelter from the elements and can be reused anywhere on the network for future projects. This scheme and these costs are being fully funded by the Transforming Cities Fund for St Budo Interchange. After lots of questions about not having shelters here, now that they are in place, Councillors Hayden and Dingle tell me how happy residents are that they are in place now. Thank you, Chair.
That's very good. Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Coker. I will now move on to Chair's urgent business. I have no urgent business. So I'm going to move now to item 6 on the agenda, which is about the Plymouth Sound National Marine Park and in particular, the National Lottery Heritage Fund Horizons programme. And it's down, it says here, for me to introduce that, which I'm going to do. But first, can I welcome to the Cabinet some very important people indeed from the National Marine Park. Kate, Kat, would it be all right if you introduce the team?
I would be honoured. So at the far end, we have Tors Froud, who's our partnership and inclusion manager and drives all of the work with the people aspect. So really drives the heart of the project, which is around inclusion activity. Next to her is Sharon Mercer, who's our programme manager, who keeps us all on track and makes sure that we deliver this best value for money and on time. We've got Nick, who is one of our coastal rangers, who is driving particularly the volunteer programme. So if you see people out and about doing great things in the park, you'll likely see Nick there. And I would mention Sam, who's our other coastal ranger, who's on leave today, who's also been doing a huge amount of work in the development period and will continue it in delivery. Don't really need to introduce Elaine, who's the CEO of the National Marine Park, and also to mention some of the other team that couldn't be here today. So we've got a capital team with Patrick Knight and Patrick Bowes and James Whitelock, so that if you see scaffolding going up and activities happening in the park, they will definitely be around. And Clara Friend, who has been supporting us, and Kate Duncan, who's been really helping on the nature side.
Fantastic. What a team. What a team. And for those of you, I mean, we've been banging on about the National Marine Park for quite some time, I think. A matter of years, I think, but it's another great day today, I think, because at the moment, we're asking you a very simple question today, which is, would you like some money? And would you like to start the ball rolling on a 5-year programme of activity in the UK's first National Marine Park? I mean, that's essentially why we are gathered here today. So first things first, we've got to thank the National Lottery Heritage Fund and National Lottery players, because thanks to them, we've got a decision to accept £11.6 million of investment in our park. It's brilliant that the Heritage Fund is supporting our plans that we've developed over the last few years. The Plymouth Sound National Marine Park will revolutionise how we look after, enjoy and celebrate the sea. That's so much a part of our history, our heritage, and now our future. And what an achievement it is for us to be offered a second very large-scale investment from the National Lottery. They said it could not be done. And, having had that big hand out from the lottery for the box, it was a bit cheeky for us to have another go. But we thought, we've got something here that's really special and really fitting for this new strand of funding. In fact, an exemplar probably. And we said at the time, this could only happen in Plymouth, right? So, why wouldn't you do it here? And, it sort of does demonstrate that when we put our minds to something in Plymouth, we can usually be trusted by funders to do the biz. Because what we do is we turn brilliant ideas into real projects on the ground. That's what we do. So yes, it's lovely to have a funding offer. It's amazing, in fact. But what people really want to know is, what does it actually mean for the city? Over the weekend, a few of us attended a conference in Coventry. We were there was a launch of 101 things that Labour councils do when they're in power. And we feature in that 101 things. In fact, the National Marine Park features in that booklet, and I'm very proud of that. But making announcements is one thing, but what does it mean? So, don't forget that we did spend about a year road testing what it was we wanted to do. We could have, from our ivory tower in the Civic Centre, have decreed what it was we wanted to use the money on. But actually, we thought it would be a good idea if we actually asked folk who live here and visit here and got stakeholders in here what they would like. So we spoke to, well, you spoke to 10,000 people, right? 10,000 people. Pilot ranger schemes, school programs, delivering large-scale events like the National Marine Park Open Weekends with our friends at the National Marine Aquarium. So what is proposed in this programme now and in the project has been developed with people from across the city. And what is being proposed for year one is awesome. It's a year of firsts. I'm going to ask Tom and Sally in a minute to talk a little bit about just how awesome. They've got degrees of awesomeness between them that they have to reveal to you in terms of the programme. But what I'd like to share are the plans for some of our greatest waterfront buildings to be turned into gateways to the park. Supporting more people to be able to enjoy the National Marine Park. So, for example, city's iconic Art Deco Lido at Tinside. Scaffolding will go up before the start of the bathing season to support the works, including the refurbishment of the first floor and terrace and a building on the pool side, which is being transformed into a space specifically for young people. There'll be some works happening over the summer as a result of that, but it will be worth it. It will be worth it. And if anybody's had the pleasure of being in the first floor at Tinside in its current state, we'll be very grateful indeed. It is, yeah, it's it's grim. I think the word is grim, isn't it? And it is probably one of the best views in the city. So it's been lying dormant and idle and waiting for the opportunity to turn it around for quite some time, so it'll be worth it. The Mountbatten Peninsula is going to be transformed. We're going to work with our friends at the Mountbatten Centre to install a new pontoon with accessible changing rooms that will enable more people to access the park. The current users of Mountbatten will be pleased to know that we're dragging the change-in facilities from the late 19th century well into the 21st century, so that'd be great. We're also going to be improving the offer across the peninsula as a whole, so that's going to enable people to enjoy the National Marine Park without getting wet by developing a refurbishment of the centre, cafe, and areas along the water. The project will also deliver improved access to the 17th century tower, so more people can experience the amazing views from the top. So that's going to be great. And then over the other side, at Mount Edgecombe, we'll be enabling more people to experience the Garden Battery. And we've got designs to open up the Palmerston Coastal Defence Fort there. That'll be finalised this year, and then works will start to that in early 25. And that's quite a spectacular project in itself. The room itself is beautiful, and it'll be lovely to be able to share that with more people. So these plans will make the park more welcoming. It'll also bring it to life, but what will really bring it to life will be people. So I will now ask Tom and then Sally to tell you more.
Great, thanks a lot, Leader, and thank you for the team for coming along today to discuss this with us further. I'd echo the points that you've already made about what an exciting moment that we have reached. We're about to embark on a transformational 5-year programme that will help the entire city to get in, under and around our National Marine Park. What an opportunity we have not only to deliver hugely impactful improvements for Plymouth and its residents, but also to lead a national movement supporting others to follow in our footsteps, delivering groundbreaking national marine parks in other parts of the country. What is really different about our National Marine Park is that it's led by the people. We've been given funding by the Heritage Fund for a programme which enables local residents to drive a change rather than being directed by top-down rules or legislation. Our city is bringing the concept of a National Marine Park to life, changing the relationship between people and nature. One of the most important parts of the change is to ensure that everyone across the city feels a part of that movement and is enabled to enjoy and help care for the park. There may be people reading articles in the Herald about this programme who think that the National Marine Park might not be for them. Maybe you don't currently visit the waterfront that often, or maybe you've never swam in it before, or you don't yet know what amazing creatures live here in Plymouth Sound. Well, today is a reminder to everyone that our National Marine Park is for all. In this first year and throughout the project, we want to enable as many people as possible to be involved in the park and connect with the spectacular nature of Plymouth Sound. And to start this during the next 12 months, we will be delivering loads of activities to encourage everyone to join in. This includes, but certainly not an exhaustive list, meeting the Marine Park, where our friends at the National Marine Aquarium will be travelling around the city, bringing the wonders of the park to a place or space near you, wherever you are in the city. National Marine Park Swim Space. If you feel you can't enjoy the National Marine Park because you're not confident in the water, as I mentioned earlier, this particular programme will be for you. A programme designed to build skills in, on and under the water, offering beginner swimming lessons through to snorkelling and diving, running from our amazing National Marine Park Gateway sites. Archaeology digs to help us connect our marine past to our National Marine Park current and future. And that doesn't involve mentioning rock pooling, coastal cleans, walks around the park. There's going to be so many exciting activities to get involved with. There really is too much to go through now, but please keep a close eye on our digital channels to be the first to hear about these activities and opportunities to get involved. We will also be starting our Nature Boost programme, and this is something I'm particularly excited about, all about helping nature to thrive in the Sound. We will be doing important work with species across the 5 years, starting with thornback rays, whilst also protecting crucial habitats, seagrass, intertidal mudflats and biogenic reefs. We will be running a community grants programme, so if you or any of your residents have an idea to help wildlife, you can apply to lead your own project within the park. This opportunity to join people and nature up in a new, innovative way, which is great for everyone, is one we all need to grasp. The more everyone gets involved, the better the park will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Sally.
Thank you, Leader. I am truly excited about this project. Now, anyone who knows me knows how passionate I am about children and young people finding inspiration and learning. And what could be more inspiring than being part of the UK's first National Marine Park? This is real experiences, rich curriculum, and brings out also that awe and wonder in our children. In addition to the wonderful activities that will happen across the city and the transformation at our at the NMP gateways, there'll be a real significant learning and discovery programme. This programme will include the Sea in Our School. This programme will take the National Marine Park into classrooms and school children to the park and beyond. The focus will be Key Stage 2, and over the 5 years, Key Stage 2 is the junior range of primary school children. And over the 5 years, every primary school in Plymouth will be invited to participate. Schools will be able to visit the park and, through the wonders of digital technology, visit inaccessible parts of the National Marine Park and see what's under the waves. It will provide a unique and memorable way of bringing education to life and make our standard Key Stage 2 curriculum just a bit saltier. In addition to ensuring all schools are invited to the park, invited to the work of the park, we want to develop a very close relationship with 15 schools, and we want to work across all 5 years of the programme. Through this approach, we want to see how impactful long-term engagement with the National Marine Park will be for our children, and also that will extend into our families. And I know this from experience. A quality project done in school will actually bring families in as well. As a teacher in my previous role, this really excites me as I can see how beneficial this will be for children's learning and their whole school experience. It's about aspiration and those wider experiences. And I'm supporting the development of this area of the programme, and it's really worth almost coming out of retirement, going back into the classroom for it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And as well, I think also to add the opportunities of continuing professional development for our teachers and the high quality resources that there's going to be, which is going to really upskill teachers and help to deliver a really rich curriculum. But the learning doesn't just stop with primary school. This programme also includes engaging STEM days with our young people and the whole area of work focused on engaging and working alongside further education, higher education students. The NMP team itself will host 4 paid internship roles each year to enable people to gain vital experience to support their career journey. Everything delivered in the project will seek to maximise opportunities for learning and discovery and include formal and informal routes. And if that wasn't enough, for those who want to be more involved, an exciting citywide volunteer recruitment drive will start in early spring. This will offer people with varying levels of commitment opportunities support Plymouth Sound National Marine Park, either occasionally for a couple of hours a day or an active regular part of the team. As Councillor Bryce-Delsworth just said earlier on, we really need to encourage everyone to get involved. If you've never volunteered or done anything similar before, that's absolutely not something that deter you from getting in touch and getting involved. Our NMP, the very first in the UK, is a park for all. It's truly inclusive. It's for all of us, and you will be made to feel welcome and supported in your volunteering journey. I could actually talk all afternoon on this, if allowed to, but I think I might be kicked under the table here. But what an exciting programme we are starting here today. It really is a momentous moment. So I will finish at this point by saying I'll be doing all I can to make this pioneering initiative as impactful as possible. And I hope everyone takes the opportunity to be part of it too. It's just completely engaging and totally enthusing. Thank you.
Well, if you wouldn't mind staying retired, because we sort of need you here, really. But I mean, you have conveyed, you know, just how important this is. Because when we started this whole journey, it is about, you know, marine citizenship. It's about getting in love with the sea. It's about how all of that thing can change behaviour, not just of the children, but actually of their adults and their, you know, and their mums and dads and grandparents. Before I close this, so I wondered, Sue, I mean, you've been in the gang for quite some time yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, I wasn't on that awesomeness list, but I won't hold that against you, Tudor. It's all right. It's all right. I think I'll just start off by saying a big thank you, though, because I was on a different course last week, and I gave the National Marine Park up as a real project that had, and don't take this as a negative, officers, but it had real political drive to make it happen. It is one of those things where, you know, politicians working with people in the community, it wasn't our idea, it was other people's idea, but got hold of it and realised, you know, this is an amazing thing to drive forward for the benefit of the city. So it is great just to see or hear. Every time I hear the National Marine Park, I get this little warm glow in my heart and think, oh, I was there at the beginning. And you can't help but be so pleased, because it's not been an easy journey. And I think from my point of view, it's still so nice being part of that journey, because we've talked about children, we've talked about the infrastructure, but actually a lot of this is just about connecting our citizens to the sea. And if you look at all the portfolio holders, we've all got buy-in into this, and that's why I think it's so amazing. So for me, it's about encouraging everybody to be active, for people to be able to get in the water, stay safe. For Mary and her Aging Well agenda, it's how we make sure that everybody benefits from this. It really is, from the tiny tots when they go swimming, right to those, you know, people who occasionally get in the water and go in the sea. It's the whole grade, but I just think it's fantastic. And I just think, you know, the whole team's got a lot to be proud of.
Fabulous. Now, before we go to the vote and everything, both you and I are serving directors of the Mountbatten Motorsport Centre. So can I ask the legal officer for some advice on this matter, please?
Yes, just to say, I confirm that I'll grant you a dispensation so that you can vote on this matter.
Thank you very much. It's one of these weird things that, you know, you get put on a board because of who you are and what you do, and then it prevents you from doing other things. So that dispensation will allow us, as we have done, to speak, but then to vote as well, which is really important. Can I just ask if anybody else, I mean, you've all come here today, obviously, to listen to us and be astounded by our verbal tics, but have you got anything that you'd like to add to what has already gone before?
It's just a big thank you to everyone who's engaged, actually, because as you say, we spoke to 10,000 people before we put this project together. And the enthusiasm in this room is echoed out there as well, with everyone we've spoken to and the sessions that people ran and how engaged people were. And I think, you know, our partners have been brilliant. You know, they've really come on board behind us and shared their knowledge really freely and allowed us to build a programme that everyone loves nationally. So I think your point about what happens when a city gets behind an idea is really key. And actually, you know, it's not one people, it's everyone. And it's been such a pleasure to get to this stage. And as we always said, we only had 10% of the money for 2 years. Now we've got 90% of the money for 5 years. And it is going to be, yeah, an amazing to see what we can do in that time period.
Yes, thrilling. And you know, I have to thank you. And again, we've got to do this. I mean, there was so many of you who were involved in the bid writing process. How many appendices do you have to submit this time?
Nearly 40.
It was a lot, wasn't it? It was a lot. There was a lot of assurance that we had to give. But, you know, fundamentally, you know, we have got teams of people who are really good at the right things to say, but also giving people the assurance that if they give us the money, we'll do the right thing by it. David.
Could I just ask, it's cheeky, but give Nick the chance to say a few words. I've not asked him to, and he probably but I think that the Rangers in particular on the front line, if you like. Do you want to just say a couple of things about what the reaction has been from the people, and what some of the things you've done or have been doing are?
Absolutely. I think it's been really amazing. I mean, I spoke to 4,500 primary age school children anyway. So like, it's been a huge feat by the team. And it's been really nice to see an entire city, like you said, get behind an idea. I think the volunteering program shows this especially. I mean, we didn't even really advertise it that much, and I've got 100 active volunteers. So, you know, I think it really shows that the city is behind this, and I hope that the city continues to be behind this and sees the benefits that we can kind of hopefully bring to everything. Yeah, as part of the Ranger team and as a person who's delivered a lot of the events and a lot of the things that have been happening, it's been really, really interesting to see everyone's ideas and to try and incorporate everyone's ideas into what we're doing. It's been really interesting problem-solving techniques that everyone's got their own thing to do and everyone's got their own ideas, but to try and weave this into a programme of works has been really interesting. And I think in particular, not to shove Elaine on the fire now, but the nature projects, I think, have been the main thing people have been really interested in. And it's been really nice over this past kind of few months to really flesh that out and really kind of make it a tangible thing that people can see and people can feel, and everyone goes, oh yeah, actually, I really can get behind that. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Elaine. But thank you very much, and thank you, David, for shoving me on the fire as well.
There's a theme developing here. So yeah, I mean, the nature projects are very dear to my heart, as many people know. But I think what's really, really important about it is the work that Nick and the team have done, helping us understand what they do know and what they don't know, what they value, and how we can then weave that into what we need to do in order to really improve the quality of nature in Plymouth Sound, and how we can really inspire them to be involved in that, because nature, I'm a very big advocate of nature, but it's something that has been done to people for a very long time. So if it's always done to you, how can you actually feel like you have a say and a stake in that? So what we're actually going to do is let them help and support and enable them to do it as well. And I think that changes that whole dynamic and gives that sense of ownership of a place and a space. And if you get a sense of ownership about a place and space, you feel confident about it. If you feel confident, it's yours and you can visit and enjoy it. And I think that's what's really important. And we've got some very cool stuff coming as well. But I'm not going to say any more about that now.
Okay, well, I've got some recommendations here, which are set out on pages 7 and 8 of your packs. I'm not going to read them all out because they're very long. But I mean, effectively, what we're doing here is improving a business case. We're going to accept the money graciously and gratefully, and because we've got to do that formally. I know we've done all the publicity and everything, but we have got to write and say thanks very much. Yes, please give us the cash. Here's our bank account. And then we've also got to allocate our share of proceedings, because we have made some pledges to the lottery that we'll put some cash in as well. So we've got to agree to do that, and then we've got to give officers of the council the authority to go away and put all of this together and make everything happen. So that's basically what we've been asked to do. So could I see your hands in the air, please, for the recommendations? All is in favour. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's unanimously agreed. Just to say again, as well as thanking the lottery, the Cabinet does want to thank you and all the team that you outlined, and the people you probably forgot to mention that were there as well. And, it has been a monumental piece of work to get this done. It's going to be a monumental piece of work to deliver it. But I think, as you were outlining it, we've got a lot of people who are batting now for us, haven't we? Not least those 4,000 young people who are our ambassadors and our ocean ambassadors of the future, which is what it's all about fundamentally. So thank you all very much. And in non-NMP related, or rather in non-lottery Heritage Fund news, I can also announce today that for this summer, we are bringing back the 2 swimming platforms into Plymouth Sound, so that people who enjoy that sort of thing will be able to enjoy some more of it this summer. So the swimming platforms off the Plymouth Hoe are coming back for this summer fairly soon, we hope. Okay, so that's been a very good day so far, isn't it not? Thank you all very much. You are free to go. You're also free to stay if you want. So thank you. I now move to item number 7 on the agenda. This is Finance and Capital Monitoring Report, set out on pages 91 to 102 of your documents. I'm going to ask Councillor Mark Lowry to present, and David Northey, our Service Director for Finance, will also be here to answer any impertinent questions that we might have.
Yes, I do have the ability to empty the room, but thankfully a few of you have stayed. So we're talking about bank accounts, which you mentioned earlier. So this is the quarterly update to Cabinet to let you know how we're doing with respect to our finances for the current financial year. And so basically, this is period number 9. So we're looking back at the last 9 months. And you'll be pleased to know that if you refer to the report, we are now reporting an overspend of £1.2 million approximately with respect to the remaining 3 months of the financial year to go. Last month of period 8, we were forecasting some £4.2 million. And so there's been a £3 million improvement in 1 month alone. So an awful lot of hard work's been done to achieve this. We've got 3 more months to go. And I know working with the team, we are confident that we will be able to balance this year's financial budget, which is a challenge to say the least. I've had some experience, along with many of you in this room, of attempting to do that in the past, and it's not unusual to have an area where you have some pressure, be it adults or children. Sometimes we have inflation, sometimes we have COVID, sometimes we have wars in Ukraine, for instance. That all does have an effect, but it would appear that cumulatively over the past couple of years, all those things have come at the same time, and it's very unusual for us to have quite so many areas where there is a tremendous demand on the council's finances. We're seeing in adult social care, more adults requiring the council's support, particularly in children's. We're seeing like so in children's, and I know Councillor Lang will probably contribute to this discussion as we go along. Special educational needs transportation, an area equally overspending. And finally, of course, we are seeing tremendous pressure in homelessness in our city. So it has been an incredibly challenging year, and forgive me, I will do a little bit of number speak because I think it's important for the wider context. There's people outside this room who don't get to hear some of this. So with respect to children's services, you know, we are forecasting a overall expenditure of some £74 million against a budget of £63 million. It does call into question the budget setting process last year in respect of a £10.7 million increase, but as I've said, there has been some exceptional demands, which I'm sure Councillor Lang will come to. We're also seeing a forecast increase in home to school transport for special educational needs children, which is forecasting an overspend of some nearly £1.9 million. And in the People's Directorate, we're reporting an overspend of some £3.7 million. £1.3 million is in relation to additional care packages and additional demand for adults requiring our support. And in respect of what's referred to in a report as community connections, which in many respects is homelessness, we're seeing a £2.4 million ongoing pressure relating to emergency accommodation for homelessness. Hopefully, Councillor Penbervey will explain some of the actions he's taking to address this moving forward. Also, within the report, you will see that we have a forecast overspend in customer services and corporate services of £1.9 million, and they're being offset by one-off savings in this financial year. And I can assure everybody that we're working closely with officers and cabinet members to ensure that we can put long-term mitigation measures in place to address this overspend. So how have we managed to address these pressures? They've been partially offset by a £6 million budget saving identified in corporate services, plus some £4.8 million of contingency has been released from the budget. And additionally, we've used some £6 million of additional income from business rates and including the Devon-wide pool. Also, before you will see in this report the 5-year capital programme for 2023 to 2028. It is currently forecast to be £398 million, and the movements in period are set out in Table 1 of this report. It's approximately £19 million. Those approvals, subject to your approval today, will go to full council for subsequent approval. So as I've said, in terms of revenue, we have seen a substantial improvement in period, but there are tremendous challenges ahead. I'll probably say this every time, but the task before officers and members in this council and every other council in this country is incredibly challenging. And I would like to personally thank all those involved in getting us to where we are today. It's a huge effort and one that cannot be undersold in any way, shape or form. But the report's before you, Leader, and it's for Cabinet's approval.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mark. David, are there anything you want to add to what Councillor Lowry said before we open it up?
Thank you, Leader. Not a lot to add to the comprehensive summary that Councillor Lowry has given as always, but just to say we're still 1.2 million adrift of where we need to be. We have a statutory requirement to get that balance by the 31st of March, so we've still got some work to do. It's 1.2 million, but that's not the target. We've got to reduce spend as much as we can, because every pound that we can save this year will be useful when we get into next year, because we say this, and again, Councillor Lowry, every year, I think. If you think this year is difficult, wait until we get into the next one. So it's 1.2, we're getting there, it will balance, but I would not want anyone to think that it's been an easy journey to get to this point or to get to that position. Thank you.
Indeed. I mean, as I love percentages, and I'd like to know, I mean, I'm trying to do the maths in my head at the moment, but given the net budget is 218 million and you're reporting 290.6, that doesn't, I mean, to an ordinary person like myself, I mean, that's nearly balanced. I mean, it's 0.5%, 0.05%. I mean, I'm just trying to work out how close that is. It sounds 0.05, is that right?
You're in the right ball.
Good.
You're there or thereabouts, Leader.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I would say, I just want, you know, again, you talked about people outside this room, to get within 0.05% of the targeted budget is already Herculean, and we have to get, what you're saying is we have to get to 0.05% variation, which, you know, we will try and do. But, you know, we're the only bit of the public sector that this sort of applies to. You know, there are other parts of public sector can overspend and it gets rolled over. The rules that apply to local government are much trickier to deal with than some of our colleagues in other parts of the public sector, I think it's fair to say. But what I would say is, I think, you know, this has not been easy, as was said, and there's been a tremendous effort all year by officers of this council, supported by members of the cabinet, to try and control expenditure and get it down to this level. And we continue to search for value every day of the week. And you've got that pledge from us to the public and to the taxpayers about that. Any questions at all at this point? Jemima.
Not a question, but a comment really on about children's services and the budget there. And I think sometimes the vocabulary we use is really important here. We talk about overspends, but I would say that another way of looking at it is actually underfunding. And what this paper shows in respect of children's, Leader, is the work to right-size this budget, and we'll continue that work next financial year as well. It's really important to understand the context here. The government has consistently underfunded children's services, the costs of which are rising all the time. They know they are, we know they are, and Michael Gove's extra funding announced the other day is nowhere near enough to help with this. And I really don't want people to think this is something that we or the people that work in children's services just sit back and accept, because that is not the case. They work tirelessly to reduce costs where they can. But again, the context, the national context and the landscape in which we're all operating is really, really important. Recently, Councillor Creswell and I brought a motion to full council to draw attention to the profits, in some cases the profiteering, of private companies who provide residential placements for young people. A recent survey of councils by the Local Government Association showed that the number of children's social care placements costing £10,000 or more per week has risen significantly in 5 years. In 2018-19, there were 120 such placements nationally, rising to 1,510 in 2022-2023, while the proportion of councils with at least one of these types of placements has increased from 23% to 91% over the same period. So there's plenty of councils in exactly the same boat as us. And here in Plymouth, in March 2019, we had no residential placements costing more than £10,000 per week. As of today, we have 16. So again, just to underline, this is the context we and other local authorities are operating in. And I just think that's really important information to share when we're looking at the issues that we're discussing today in this paper. Thank you.
Yeah, points that are very well made, and at this conference that we referred to earlier on today, lots and lots of angst from a number of local authorities, children's services, cabinet members, leaders about the problems that have been facing us this year. We're about to talk about next year in a minute, but this year's been tough as it is. Mark, I also want to, as usual, pay tribute to your stewardship of this portfolio. It's one of the toughest in local government, being a finance person. You're the boy who likes to say no and has to say no a lot of the time. And I know you do work hard in giving us some joy in terms of spending power. But, you know, you're relentless in your focus in driving out waste and cost in the authority. And I want to thank you for everything that you do to keep our budget on track. Chris, you put your hand up for Mark.
Thank you. Yes, I thought I'd just take the opportunity that Mark gave a hint that I might like to take to talk a little about homelessness, because homelessness isn't an issue distinct here in Plymouth. It's something that the whole country is facing at the moment, and that is putting enormous pressures on every single council. The rise in what we would call pay by night, whether that's bed and breakfast or Airbnb accommodation, has been staggering across the whole country. In Plymouth, it looks worse because we were actually really good. And so the rises have been very, very substantial. And you know, 5 years ago, our bed and breakfast budget was £800,000 compared to some 4.5 million today. And that really shows the impact not only of COVID, but of all sorts of cost of living related issues, plus changes in private rented sector statutes, which mean that landlords aren't able to claim tax relief on repairs they do on buildings. They don't get capital gains reliefs anymore. And the interest rates are rising, which means that landlords are often letting at a loss. And some of them are trying to keep going, and there are some good landlords out there. I'm not going to vilify all landlords. There are bad landlords, and we're chasing them. But they get to a point where, for small people in Plymouth who've got 5 or 6 houses that are their pension fund, they're watching their pension fund vanish, and they're trying to get out of the market and save what they can get, and just adding to the homelessness pressures. Those homelessness pressures now are not just the rough sleepers that people tend to think about, and we've got more of those, and the people of Plymouth tell us, as we agree with, that isn't acceptable. But working families who can't afford the rent that the market is now asking, and who end up coming to us for relief. So there's no quick fixes, but what I did want to say is that for the last 2 years in budget scrutiny, we have challenged portfolio holders on whether the budget was realistic. And we have had assurances over the past 2 years from portfolio holders that budgets and saving targets were realistic. Were it me, I would have said no, because the business as usual budget actually needed to be about £2.423 million more than it was, because that's what we knew from the figures. I'm really pleased that this year we have stopped the annual, actually not monthly or even daily increase in bed and breakfast usage. And actually turning that boat round is a big ask. And I'd like to pay tribute to the team who've done it. And I'll come to talk about prevention later, because when we come to talk about performance, we've got some good news stories. I think the fact that we said that actually we didn't say tackling homelessness, we said building new homes. Ultimately, we need to build new homes. But that was about long-term solutions to homelessness. We made it a top priority. I'd really like to thank Tracy for making it an operational top priority, not just for community connections, but for the whole of the City Council. I think our task force has enabled us to do a lot of work at really creative thinking. And those are the things that we begin to see coming through the pipeline over the next 2 years. And we'll begin to see some of those coming sooner because of the way we've worked, because of the commitments we've made, the £10 million we agreed at the tail end of last year. Other people in the city are coming forward and saying, what can we do to help? And I'm looking forward to some future announcements based on some of those what can we do to helps that are really positive. So not only have we stopped the rise in pay by night, we've actually got people in better temporary accommodation where they're not moving, but they're able to be stable. And there I'd like to especially thank Trevi, Young Devon, Path and BCHA, who've all extended their temporary accommodation offers or bought some online for the first time, and with their specific target client groups are seeking to help not only provide a bed, but turn people's lives around so that they break the cycle of homelessness and dependency and are able to move on to establish long-term tenures and feel that they have their own home. So we are doing there. Plan for Homes 4 has got a big focus, I know, on tackling homelessness. We're going to scrutiny with it this week, and we're bringing Plan for Homes 4 to Cabinet in March. And that will be from tackling homelessness to building new homes and dealing with the private rented sector, all price points and all tenures, how we meet the housing needs of Plymouth. But ultimately, Leader, we need to build new homes. We need to bite the bullet. We need Plymouth to bite the bullet, because some of those homes people aren't going to want built. But unless we start building homes, we're never going to provide the housing that the people of Plymouth need. We're not going to tackle rough sleeping. We're not going to tackle temp accommodation. And we're not going to tackle 8,000 households on the housing waiting list who are all actively seeking accommodation, affordable accommodation at the moment. So the £4.2 odd million is a bit galling for me. Until this time round, I've always worked with our teams and delivered budgets that actually are under budget, but we know we've got to spend it. I'd like to thank Mark actually for not saying no this year, but in working with us to say yes and to come up with new solutions.
That's £15 million, that yes.
I know. And you're going to keep on reminding me, that's all right. But we are coming up with ways forward, and I'll no doubt pick up on this as we talk about budgets and performance on an ongoing basis. But we do not believe that the current housing situation in Plymouth is right, and we are tackling it, and we will continue to tackle it, and we will seek to provide housing for people, not just because it's a budget issue, but actually because we believe that our residents deserve homes, good quality homes that they can call their own. And all the budget is telling us is we've stopped decline, but now we've got a big task to do on turning that boat round properly. Thanks.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Did I see Mark Hogarth's hand go up? I think I did.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to draw members' attention to two things in the new approvals in the capital programme. The first is that we can continue with our LED lighting programme, which is reducing our carbon emissions in the city and also our energy bills. So I think it's really important that in these tough times, we are still doing things to try and improve the situation. And the second thing is the award of the money for the mover traffic signalling upgrade at one of the hotspots on Tavistock Road. And I know that somebody will ask me, what does mover mean? And it actually is a microprocessing optimized vehicle actuation traffic signalling, which actually means it reads the amount of traffic queuing and is able to reduce CO2 emissions from cars idling. So in these difficult times, I think it's really worth pointing out that we are still, along with Councillor Briers-Delve, doing things to help our environment, but also reduce our costs, Chair.
That's very good. Which means that explanation you just given means I can't say you're a lovely mover, Mark. Because now you've explained what it is, it doesn't work. Tom.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to echo some of the points that Councillor Coker has just made. It's really harrowing listening to Cabinet colleagues about their respective portfolios and those national crises that, whether it's homelessness or children's social care that local authorities up and down the country are grappling with. But like Councillor Coker has just outlined, there's still some really exciting pockets of work that the Council is still managing to do despite those pressures. So again, looking at the new capital programme approvals, there's a small line on there around Ocean City Nature, which we talked about a couple months ago, but just want to take the occasion to celebrate that again, which is, just like with the National Marine Park, which we heard earlier, an example of Plymouth City Council really leading the way in that field. Ocean City Nature is the first habitat bank across the country set up by a local authority, and we're also the first local authority in the country to invest our own finance in that. So that figure there represents a £500,000 loan, which will allow us to do really major biodiversity enhancements on our natural sites, but in the longer term to make sure that cost is passed on to developers to ensure that our local nature and also our communities best benefit from those applications when they come forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Tom. Any more for any more? Okay, so, obviously, Annex 1's really quite important in all of this as well. And, and there's a few crowd pleasers in there, Councillor Lowry.
Just Chair, I misspoke when I said there was £90 million additional in Appendix 1. It's not, it's £26.954 million in there. And 15 million of that is, as Councillor Penberthy referred to, is the homelessness agenda.
Yeah, very important. But obviously projects, as Councillor Coker just described, in terms of actually saving time and money. Some of these are investor save projects effectively, aren't they? And that was a really good thing. Okay, so shall we then agree the recommendations in the report? They're on page 91. So I'm just going to put them to you now. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. And that's carried. So I'm going to move on now to substantial report today, which is pages 1 to 96 in a supplement pack. And it's the proposed budget for 24-25. And again, we've got Councillor Lowry leading off, and David Northey, our Section 151 officer, and Tracy Lee, the Chief Executive, will also have input into this item as well. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. So our last discussion, just to remind everybody, was in fact a Labour administration delivering a previous Conservative administration's budget. This is our opportunity as a new Labour administration to set out our own budget and our own capital requirements going forward. And I have, along with officers, tried to be as transparent as we possibly could be. There are some 96 pages of documentation in front of you. very, very comprehensive. So today I'm proposing to present to you the revenue and capital budget for 24-25. So what I'm talking about is next financial year's budget commencing in April of this year. Now, I did bring to you back in November a draft budget which showed a gap of some £2.358 million back then, but a lot has happened. It was predated, it was before we'd received the final government settlement. We've now thankfully received that. And there's been, as there always is, many ups and downs from central government. Often, sadly, they do give us more money, but you also find that they take money away, and much the same has happened this year as in previous years. And also during that time, we've had a select committee look at the budget during this period of time. We've also engaged extensively with the business sector, and we've undertook a public engagement exercise. And the views expressed by the select committee, along with the business sector, along with the public engagement, are all included in this report, so people can see exactly what's been said by members of the public. And I would like to pick up one item that they have commented on, which is particularly about agreeing that the council should protect vital public services. And I think what you will see in going through this report, we've attempted to achieve exactly that. We heard in the previous discussion there are some serious areas where there are heavy demand and pressures upon the council, and we've attempted in this budget to ensure that we understand what those pressures are, and we've right-sized this budget to reflect those problems going forward, so we don't end up in a situation where we're always forecasting a tremendous overspend during the financial year, and I hope that will be the case in this instance. So that information is included in the budget. You will also note that the budget papers include the capital finance strategy and the treasury management strategy, both very important documentations in respect to the council's budgets, and those have been approved by the Audit and Governance Committee. So before you today, we are recommending a revenue budget of some £236.662 million. That is shown in Appendix 4 of the budget papers before you, and it continues to show that we are an ambitious city and that we're ensuring that public services are protected, particularly, I will reiterate them again, children's services, vulnerable adults, the provision of affordable housing, as Councillor Pembervey just referred to, which will continue to be a key priority in tackling the homelessness agenda. We are keenly aware of the impact of the current cost of living crisis, and that's impacting people in Plymouth, and that's why this budget does not have any reductions in critical services and does not include the introduction of any new charges for services. What it does include is additional funding for repairs to our roads. Councillor Coker is very keen on ensuring that as many, as he refers to them as road defects, most of us refer to them as potholes, of course, but he always tells me often to say that. So there is an additional allowance for that, and also Councillor Brarsdell has lobbied me extensively about grass cutting, which I'm sure he will talk to you about in detail at some stage in this budget. So, all in all, we've identified an increase in core resources totalling some £18.812 million, which includes the benefits of business rates growth, the rates pool, which I know is complicated, but that's the Devon-wide business rates pool, which we all collectively pay into and collectively receive the benefits from across the city. And it also includes additional income from our council tax due to an increase in properties and the collection rate. The key areas where this money will be spent, in addition to road defects and grass cutting, there's also going to be an additional expenditure to focus on dealing with the issues that we've discussed at length around Children's Services Directorate of some £12.07 million, and also an additional increase of some £13.7 million for the People's Directorate. We're also seeing a record number of households in temporary accommodation, which again we've discussed in the previous meeting, with an additional £3.287 million allocated to this budget to enable Councillor Penbervy and the team to address many of those problems that we've discussed. The capital programme mirrors the numbers that are reflected in the report you just had before you in month 9. In summary, those are some £398 million, and those are set out in Appendix 6. There is an awful lot of detail here which explains every single penny on the capital programme. So we're being as transparent as we possibly can. There are half a dozen pages there, both sides, that set out our aspirations around our capital programme. And in addition to that, it also sets out our assumed future funding ambitions for our capital programme at some £325 million. So, you know, we're talking about in excess of some £700 million. I would also point out, though, that the capital programme now is becoming much more expensive than it used to be in the past. Obviously, interest rates had remained around zero for a considerable period of time. Last year's disastrous contribution from others in this sector has meant that the cost of borrowing has increased substantially. So myself, the Cabinet and officers will need to go through our capital programme in detail to ensure its affordability to the taxpayer moving forward. So I think, Chair, for the moment, that's as much as I'd like to say, but the recommendations are before you. If you look at the capital programme, it's ambitious, but our principal activity is ensuring that we're able to meet our requirements to balance the books and providing adequate resources to vital public services. So hopefully this report will give you that assurance. Thank you.
As always, Mark, thank you. I wondered if anything needed to be said at this stage, David and Tracy.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you again, Councillor Lowry, for a comprehensive summary of the budget as it's been set out. I think we should just make note of the fact that this budget is dependent, and it is in the recommendations that we note that this is dependent upon and the outcome of the conversations that we're currently having with the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. These are ongoing discussions that started way back in the summer, and we are now getting very close to the conclusion of those. So we have to hold our nerve at this point, and it is a very strong budget that's been put in front of us, and it does balance, which is a lot stronger position than other councils at this time. I'd just like to say, though, that what we're waiting for from DLUC is what's called exceptional financial support, and that comes in the form of a capitalisation direction. But equally, before we set the budget in March, if we get a very strong letter of comfort from the department, then we'll be considering that as well to help us progress where we're going. So why are we here? Well, this is an outstanding issue from a transaction made back in October 2019, so it's been a long time getting to this point. The issue, which has been reported on a regular basis to colleagues in the Audit and Governance Committee, so we've been very open and transparent with the situation that we find ourselves in, relates, as I say, to a transaction we made to significantly reduce the cost of our pension deficit. So a very technical issue that came up. The transaction involved borrowing funds to reduce the ongoing cost to the pension deficit and the cost that would put onto our revenue budget. We accounted for this transaction as capital, but a review by our auditors showed that while the transaction had not been, in their words, detrimental to the public purse, it was unusual, and they had some concerns regarding the process that we went through and whether indeed this should be capital or revenue. Tracy will give you some more details about the governance reviews that we've undertaken, but we have satisfied everything that Grant Thornton have asked us to do. So in order to move forward and close the 1920 accounts, which is basically where this transaction took place, and therefore before we can set next year's budget, we have requested this capitalisation direction. And that would allow us to do a retrospective accounting adjustment to both close 1920 accounts and also to proceed with the proposed budget as you have in front of you today. Now, as the government usually issues these capitalisation directions to councils in the first week of March, and that's after they've got all the business out of the way of the final settlement and council business, it's concluded, or the negotiations with councils are concluded before the start of the next financial year. So for that reason, you will have noted that we have moved the full council meeting from February to early March. So this will give us a bit more headroom in order to continue those negotiations. We do have a statutory obligation to set the council tax by the close of play on Monday, the 11th of March this year. So if we have the meeting on Friday, we feel we've got some space. At this stage, an option to propose an alternative budget which takes into account us not receiving what we have requested has not been put forward. So in my opinion, as the Section 151 officer, I don't feel that we are in that position at the moment. In the pack, there is a first letter that's come in to give some comfort to us, and it does state that they are working very closely with us to help us achieve a balanced budget position. But I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't say that if we do get to the 8th of March and we are still in the same situation, then I will have to put forward some recommendations to you as Cabinet on a revised budget that will then have to be presented through to full council. But I am confident at this point that we will reach a conclusion before we get there. Thank you, Chair.
Just to follow on from what David has said there, there are many councils who are in discussions with the government department about a whole variety of issues. And as David says, the issue that we have goes back to the 1920 accounts and the transaction there, and you'll be fully aware of that, as is our audit and governance. In trying to resolve the issue, we are working closely with Grant Thornton, who are our auditors, and as you'll be aware from what David has said, there is a letter in your pack that sets out that the government officials are working with us on this matter. And as David says, traditionally these capitalisation directions, we call them capitalisation directions, they call them exceptional financial support. That it is a one-off, it's a one-off issue. We are expecting that the first week in March. They normally come in first stage by an in-principle decision, followed up by a more detailed decision. We do expect it to come with conditions. So government will be looking at this, and there will be some, no doubt there will be some conditions attached to that. What I would say to you, and David I know has already alluded to it, following the transaction in 2019-20, Grant Thornton did undertake a governance review in relation to the transaction, which they considered to be novel and innovative. And as a result of that, there were some recommendations which the council fully accepted, and we've implemented those recommendations. So we've done everything that Grant Thornton asked us to do. So the reason, as David has said, the reason why we've asked for the full council to be moved is to enable that in principle decision, hopefully to come through by that date. In your pack, you've got a risk and mitigation table, which just sets out those the risks that we have across the whole of the budget and the mitigation. And Leader, if I can also just say a word or two about the budget. This budget is really significant because, as Councillor Lowry has said, we're not making any cuts to services, to frontline services in any way, shape or form. But people have, along with cabinet members, have worked incredibly hard to enable that to come to fruition. So, you know, we've done it in a very calm way, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been a very, very difficult process. There's been a huge amount of work
to model cost, what we call cost and volume, the financial implications of huge demands in our services in the city for children's services, for adult social care and for homelessness. And that's mirrored up and down the country by those levels of demand. We've got a lot more sophisticated in that demand, but also as we're moving forward with our improvement programme for children's services, making sure that we can get the right funding in there to be able to deliver the improvements that I know you and all of us want to deliver across those services is really, really important. So just a big thank you to everybody who's been involved. And of course, what we do need to do is continue to make sure that we are closing the gap in the existing year. Because if we aren't able to close that gap, that has implications in terms of how we move forward into next year. But I think we've got confidence that, again, working across all services, across the council, then we're making great strides in closing that gap. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm opening it up now. Tom, please.
Councillor Lowry's anticipated one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and that's grass cutting. I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to the blue circle on the wall there for the benefit of people online. It's democracy on our corporate plan. It starts with because we listen. And whilst I didn't enter local politics to fight on grass cutting, I entered local politics to represent communities that I really care about. And I think it's fair to say that the budget that we inherited last May with regards to grounds wasn't sufficient to meet the level of grass cutting that all of us would hope for, what our residents would hope for, what we as councillors would hope for, and also what the staff on the ground would hope for too, because it wasn't sufficient to meet the regular grass cut that our policy sets out. So Councillor Lowry's right. There's been quite a lot of lobbying over recent months to make sure that we increase that budget and to deliver a better service on grass cutting. There have been various challenges this year, not least on climate change, on weather, on health and safety, changes to policy. But it's important that we remember that Plymouth City Council is responsible for hundreds of hectares of grassland, the equivalent of 1,000 football pitches. And so in order to do that properly, we need to make sure that there was a budget that was more appropriate. So we've listened to feedback from residents and we've already been putting into place changes. The grass cutting team has been allocated an additional £300,000 to fund some staffing changes and to look at running costs. What will that mean? Well, that will mean new teams focused on improving grass cutting in both crematoria and play parks, which was one of the key themes of the feedback that we had. Net staffing for grass cutting will improve overall, but we've also looked at very specific aspects of that, including our plans to hire an additional tractor driver and a specialist driver to really make that difference. But I didn't just want to talk about grass cutting today. I also wanted to mention the climate change side of my portfolio. And one of the things that page 20 of this particular item makes really clear is that in the next few years of this capital programme, there's about £70 million of projects that we've lined up specifically focused on delivering a net zero Plymouth. This makes this the greenest budget that I think Plymouth City Council has ever tried to introduce. And if you look at page 29 of the document, you've got a whole page there of some really ambitious projects relating to district energy schemes, solar farms, stuff around energy efficiency, social housing decarbonisation, decarbonising our fleet. All of those are going to make a huge difference to our city, to the health of our residents, but also to us playing our part on what we do around climate change. I also wanted to specifically mention the Climate Emergency Investment Fund. I was incredibly disappointed that the previous administration cut back on the Climate Emergency Investment Fund. We've essentially done the opposite of that. What this budget includes is a ratcheting up of the revenue budget from £250,000 to £450,000, pretty much doubling the size of that revenue budget. That will support approximately a further £2 million of capital investment in Plymouth decarbonisation projects. In fact, it's more likely to result in far more than that, because what the Net Zero team do is an excellent job of utilising small amounts of that particular fund to unlock some major external grant opportunities. So I wanted to thank the finance team for allowing us to have the headroom to do that. That will again make a huge difference to our net zero ambitions here in Plymouth. Thank you.
Tom, thanks very much indeed. Anybody else want to make any points? Councillor Dan.
I think sometimes when we talk about budgets, it's all money. So I just thought I'm going to do it a slightly different way and talk about the impact of the value of the pound that we spend. Within this budget, there is, you know, a lot of money going into sport and leisure across the city. So it is not just what has just come in through the National Marine Park and the Horizon Park. It's also the investment that we've put into Brickfields with other partners, which not only gives us a new health and wellbeing hub and modern sport facilities, it also gives us sports facilities for elite sport in one of the most deprived wards of the city. We couldn't do that if we didn't believe that actually by encouraging people to be active is good for everyone. We've also made sure that working with Plymouth Active Leisure, we're supporting the Life Centre, we're supporting Tinside, and we're making sure that swimming at Mount Wise remains free. That is a political decision. Again, it makes sure that those people in a deprived area of the city get access to the water, which fits in with everything that we're trying to do with the National Marine Park. And together with our sports development team, we're working with partners right across the city collaboratively, using the money that we do have to make sure that we access as many communities as we can. I've also got that lovely heading, customer service, which is two small words, which mean a hell of a lot. Because if you think about it, for our residents, whatever way they access the council, whether it's through the website, whether it's on the phone, whether it's going into a library, they need to be able to access the council. And we're going to be using IT and IT technology to help support that. Because we know that we've got increased demand. We know that more people need to speak to us in the council for real help. So if we can use artificial intelligence and digital technology to take away some of the everyday work, to free up our staff to deal with people, we are actually becoming more inclusive. It's a slow journey, but it's a new one for us, but we have found the money to invest. We employ thousands of people, and recognising our staff is equally important. So paying the foundation living wage, paying our apprentices what they're due, looking at how we recruit and retain and train our staff are equally important. And I'm really pleased to say that the HL budget has been resized and reset so that we can support our staff in delivering the excellent services. And I can't not say anything about the cost of living, because we challenged ourselves last year to do a cost of living action plan, which we did, and it has been really successful. And we've moved that on now. I attended a Plymouth Charter last week when we had 80 employees sitting in a room thinking about how resilient they are in the city and what they can do to support their employees moving forwards. So we are going to continue to support that activity. We know that people in the city have been really pushed hard. And if you go out and you talk to people in the city now, their most pressing issue is the cost of living. So we have to continue to support that and move it forward. So together with that, with Councillor Penberthy, we're looking at how we can transition that cost of living plan now into a wider strategy for the city to keep it going. So there's a lot of activity in there supporting residents actually enjoy the fruits of the city.
Thanks very much indeed, Sue. Jemima.
Thank you. I talked earlier about right-sizing the budget, and it's a phrase which can actually belie the enormous bit of work that needs to be done to make sure a budget is right for what we are predicting for the coming year. So the budget, I'm going to talk about children's, and then I want to talk about culture as well, if that's okay, two of my portfolios. So the budget setting process for children's services for 24-25 has been achieved as a result of some very intense analysis and detailed planning over a sustained period of time. And I would like to thank this David and that David and their teams for all their work on this. Colleagues from across the council have been involved in building a budget that is realistic, most important of all, addressing issues arising from volume and demand and the current climate of the economic market, and also allows the opportunity for investment in the service on areas such as increased staffing to meet increased demand and to maintain appropriate caseloads, staff training and development, and improve the offer for Plymouth foster carers. A significant issue for children's services is the rising cost of independent, specialist and residential placements, which I've already spoken about. This is reflective of the lack of availability of placements in the South West region and across the country, not just a Plymouth problem. We're all grappling with this. Whilst an increase in the budget is proposed to offset the current cost and volume of our children requiring a service now, we've built further growth into this element of the budget to allow us to find ways to identify solutions and changes in practice to enable more children to live at home or with extended family or in homes or with foster carers closer to Plymouth. We recently had a very successful foster care summit, which I really enjoyed being part of at the end of January. And that has set the programme for growth and support of our in-house fostering and special guardianship service. Our internal foster carers are just so important to Plymouth, and we are committed to increasing the number of foster carers and to providing a good, much improved package of reward and support to them based on what they have told us would make them feel valued and make them choose to become local authority foster carers. What's really crucial is that this budget allows the service to invest in its staff to ensure optimise caseloads across the service, to enable social workers and support staff to do good quality work with children and families. That's important, but we know that this is absolutely key to recruitment and retention of social workers as well. We have the capacity to provide help and support to children and families at the right time and to develop our early help offer with partners. Improved relationships and support for our in-house foster carers and special guardians so that fewer children need to live in residential placements. Additional capacity in our brokerage and commissioning team, which will help address placement sufficiency. It's easy for me to say. Sufficiency challenges. I've got a problem with my leg, not my teeth, right. New training and development opportunities have been created as a result of this budget. And alongside a successful recruitment drive, along with our current recruitment and retention offer, it's really going to help us succeed in building a strong and permanent workforce. And so, to talk a bit about culture, I'm really proud that through this budget we're going to be continuing to invest in culture in Plymouth. And we don't do that just because we love art, museums, events or the theatre. We do it because of the incredible return on our investment and the impact that we know that cultural investment has on our city and on our residents. Our journey on culture placemaking and culture-led regeneration has been nationally recognised by the Arts Council, who published a major case study on Plymouth this year. So this year's budget will see the box bring in 250,000 visitors to the city, an incredible international programme of arts and cultural events, a superb cultural schools programme, an incredible engagement programme working with many of our deprived communities in the city, support for cultural organisations including Plymouth Culture, the Theatre Royal, the Barbican Theatre and the Arts Cinema. Deliver an amazing city events programme on the Hoe, including the new summer sessions. Sophie Ellis-Bextor has been added to the list today for those who are interested. Significant new income generation, 2.6 million for the box, 1.1 million for Mount Edgecombe, which will be cost neutral for the first time, 750,000 for events. And we've secured £50 million worth of grants over the past 5 years. So I'm so proud that in Plymouth We've made space for this investment to continue at a time when so many local authorities are simply cutting culture, at a time when I think people need it more than ever. And I thank yet another David Draffen, and his brilliant team for everything they do. Thank you.
Lovely. Sophie Ellis Baxter, eh? That's something. And that's a bit of a coup as well, isn't it? Given, you know, what's happening with her at the moment. It's great. Sally Hayden. So.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I had to lean over there. We've talked about important services to the people of Plymouth. Well, bereavement service is very important to people. We're just months away from opening our new crematorium, state-of-the-art crematorium, may I say. The park will deliver an up-to-date facility for bereavement families of Plymouth. We'll have 3 ceremony rooms, from anything from 120 people to 12 people for that intimate funeral if need be. The park will also offer customised lighting. It will also offer modular furniture, which will be movable for accessibility for all. The new lighting system will be the first in the country to have this technology. So, for instance, you'll be able to colour the wall in the deceased's favourite colour. For example, Plymouth Argyle green, if that's what people would like. There'll be a new reception, an admin area for families to meet our staff in a comfortable area. The park will also have a public cafe and 2 function rooms that will be available for families for hire for wakes or memorial events or other family functions. Now, the project team have thought about the customer throughout this project to make sure that we try to make what can be a very difficult day for a family and easier and as smooth as possible. So that's why I'm really pleased to say in this budget this year, bereavement services fees will remain the same as we recognise the cost of living crisis and families need to be able to say goodbye to their loved ones in a dignity way. Chair, if you wouldn't mind, I would just like to pick up about libraries because Councillor Dan mentioned about customer services, and libraries is one of our vital hubs in our communities, may I say, how we can support our residents. And I'm hope Councillor Dan don't mind me saying, but we're going to be looking at some customer services where people will be able to come into the library and access, and then more I've got it now, thank you Jemima, and I have got tea. So a more easy way anyway, for people to be able to access our services instead of being able to try and travel into the city if need be. And lots have been going on in our libraries. We recognise the cost of living. We've done donate the coat. We've done donate our tins, and our librarian staff are always at hand to help in any way they can. I probably could say so much more about this budget, but I'll leave you all waiting for full council when I can explain a lot more. Thank you, Chair.
That's very good. Thank you very much indeed. Sally Cresswell.
From my perspective as the Cabinet Member for Education, Skills and Apprenticeships, I feel that the proposed budget will deliver for our children and young people, particularly in the areas where I'm responsible, at a time where we've already covered this, there are major challenges in terms of inadequate government financing, and that particularly hits an area that I'm responsible for, which is special educational needs. And we are on an improvement journey with that. But I do feel that there is a real commitment here, and I think Tracy's just alluded to it as well, in order to make the rapid and embed the improvements of our SEND services, which is all about making the improvements and such for our children and their families. Part of that improvement as well is going to come from the planning of our SEND sufficiency places, and I was looking at, I think it's page 27, which refers to some of that provision and such that has already been going in terms of the modular units at Milford, Cambridge and College Road, but also the sufficiency that we are looking at and planning to make sure that there are sufficient special educational needs places, and probably looking in a creative way so that some of those might be hubs and units, etc., that would be in in spare capacity within our schools, and there's a reference to that within this budget. I have to also go on and mention as well the issue of school transport costs, which have been a particular challenge. And I've got to say, I have really got to say a very big thank you to David Northey and his team, and also to Bark, Councillor Lowry, for the way that they have worked with us. This is not an easy one to solve at all. And again, it fundamentally comes down to as well is the underfunding as well that comes from the problems that we have nationally. But one of the things that we are looking at and we've been supported with is an investment to save in a sense, but also it's a commitment to a piece of work to invest in travel training, which isn't just about invest to save, it's actually in terms of the long-term benefits to some of our young people who can be independent travellers, and by providing them with the necessary training, it gives them those skills for life when they move beyond and they move from into adulthood as well. So it's actually really important, and I think the budget recognises that, and I have to go back again to both to David and also to Mark as well, and the way that they've worked so well with the team, and very many thanks to David Haley as well. I don't know we've got all the answers, but we're certainly working very much in the right direction, and that's to do with the felt that I feel that this council's response and approach is very much about a whole council commitment to those important areas as far as our children are concerned, be it SEND, transport and children's services. I'd like to mention one other area, and that is the investment in the economy, which I know that the leader will obviously focus on, and that is his very much, he will have a good response there. But I'd also like to mention aspects of work that we've been doing as far as skills and apprenticeship training, and this budget shows a fundamental commitment to, in terms of unlocking Plymouth's potential, going from strength to strength with our young people. And an illustration of that would be, I will just hold that up, would be the support for Plymouth's talent. And we've gone from 9 to 24 internships, and now we're on track for 60 supported internships, which is a real achievement. And one final point I will make, because I went on the visit to the crematorium. I can't get away from the National Marine Park. I'm sorry, I can't get away from the National Marine Park. And to the crematorium, and one of the really impressive things there, really impressive, was the amount of work that's been done at the crematorium with the work with apprentices. There's been 11 new apprentices there, young apprentices there, 26 weeks of work experience, 123 level application qualification levels, and 270 apprentice training weeks. In total, there's been engagement with a huge 2,757 students, and I think that is an amazing achievement. So thank you very much for indulging me, Leader, and going a bit off track there.
That's good stuff. Well, particularly if, as I say, confusing the aquarium with the crematorium. Right, I've got, I think, Councillor Pemberthy and then Councillor Coker and Councillor Ashman. I need to move this a little along quite quickly now, so if you could keep your contributions short, that'd be very much appreciated.
Thank you, Leader. I mentioned when we were talking about this year's budget about the fact that the budget didn't account for the need that was there on the 1st of April. I'm really pleased that Councillor Lowry has given us a business as usual base budget which allows for existing need in homelessness. And because of the work that we've done this year, I'm confident that the £1 million savings target that we have put in as we transform the system will be deliverable. In fact, I know the team and I are working to achieve more than that over the course of next year. But we can only do that because we are starting from a stable base. And I think it's worth saying that that's a substantial investment from here, on top of not only the £15 million for temporary accommodation, but the £10 million that's already there to support Plan for Homes 3 that will be morphing into Plan for Homes 4 and will no doubt attract new items into the capital programme as we continue to work that one through. So I think that's really good news on housing, but like others, I have a slightly broader portfolio. Councillor Dan has talked a little about cost of living, but the cost of living is almost icing on a really bad cake of people in Plymouth who, for at times generations, have lived below a poverty line. And as a city, we've been doing work to tackle child poverty in a way that almost no authorities have since it's been removed from statutory obligations. I'd like to thank Councillor Lowry. The £25,000 a year we get to tackle that this year has dealt with issues of children's dental health and literacy, and done some really innovative and transformational project work. Over the course of next year, we will be building a whole new approach to poverty that won't be talking about deficits, but we'll be talking about strengths. And in June, we are hoping, we're already working on it, to bring a paper that pulls together everything that the council is doing that enables people in Plymouth to build bridges to opportunity. And that will be how we as a council across economic development, housing, public health, adult and children's social care, and everything else are tackling poverty and tackling the cost of living crisis and bringing it together into one place so that we can actually see it, celebrate it, and make sure that we maximise the impact of every single bit through joining it up. And that will be reflected in the work that we do on inclusive growth and our continued support to co-ops and social enterprises through the social impact funding that we have. And on top of that, despite the funding pressures, we're going to continue to invest in things that we own that benefit the people of Plymouth. So Guildhall refurbishment, Firestone Bay Pool refurbishment, and actually the refurbishments and more opening up of this building are all included in the budget. Leader, this is a budget proposal that isn't a frightened budget proposal. This is an ambitious budget proposal that actually shows that Plymouth is open for business in every single area. And I'm delighted at what Councillor Lowry, David, and all of the teams of officers across the council have been able to deliver, because this is really a budget that supports Plymouth, and we should be rightly proud of that. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Chair. Because of time, I will keep this short, but I just think there's some important ones, and I pay tribute to Councillor Lowry for working with us and giving us some budgets for our highways, which will enable us to keep the velocity machine next year and look for new and innovative measures in that, when you've only got to look at highways and SPNI up and down the country where councils are making severe cuts to their transport budget. I'd also like to say, Chair, and I think this is important to everybody in the room, this budget I set out a year ago that we would mark the passing of our friend and colleague Councillor Vincent with a cycle and walking track and call it Brian Vincent Way. This budget allows us to deliver that. It's supported by residents in Efford, Plymouth Cycling Campaign. So I'm really pleased to be able to take that. We've got up and running our car club this year, and we want to extend that further next year. And also, we've actually introduced where up and down the land bus services are being cut. We've managed to introduce a new one this year. I've just been told before we came to the meeting that the Department for Transport want to bring their whole bus team to Plymouth to talk through our future funding to see what we've done. So I think that's really encouraging that we're being recognised for doing something that is bucking the trend nationally. There's lots more, Chair, but I think that gives you an impression of where we're going.
Oh, that's really good news, and congratulations on the success of the bus. But also, obviously, the announcement you made about Brian will go down very well with a lot of people in Plymouth. So thank you, Mary Aspinall.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's would have been Brian's birthday today, so a very apt day to make that announcement. Leader, you'll be glad to hear that the Social Care Discharge Fund is going to continue, which will help us help the local hospitals to get patients out of there and into either the care they need or get them home where we can get a package of care organised should they need it. So that's got to be really, really welcome. And secondly, I think there's lots in here that really benefits adult social care. I mean, one of the other things that we've been able to do is that when we look at the money that we send into the social care providers, is we can cover that difference in the cost of living rise that they've got, the living wage rather for the time, and it's really important to our care providers, because that's sometimes what would tip them over the edge if we didn't. And of course, she says bitterly and twisted that we didn't get that from the government. We've had to find it in our own budget from it. The government, even though they put the national minimum wage up, didn't give us any extra to do that. So disappointing, but we've managed to do that. And last but not least, this budget allows Caring Plymouth to carry on and improve the skills of the social care workforce, and that to me is what's vital and important. We need a well-trained, well-motivated carers to make sure that we give that first-rate care. So I'm really pleased. There's those three things alone, let alone looking at other things, which I'm sure by the time council comes, I shall be full of list, and you probably have to shut me up. Thank you, Leader.
Now, unless I'm very much mistaken, I think you've all had a say, haven't you? Yeah. I just wanted to say there's lots to do. I've got a big speech to make at the budget meeting whenever we have it, but I am going to be talking about unlocking Plymouth's potential. I know this budget does that. I'm going to be talking about the fact that we want to see Plymouth get its future back, and how the way in which we've been funded at the moment is a barrier to that. We've just been, as I said earlier, to this conference in Coventry where we met loads of leaders who were saying that this year, it's been bad for the last 14 years, but this is as bad as it's ever been. It's the worst it's ever been in local government for trying to match the responsibilities of local government with the resources that we have available. And it's been stressful for council leaders, for portfolio holders, for chief executives, and particularly for 151 officers. And it's, as I say, we're immensely grateful to David and his team for getting us to this point. And when we go to the meeting in a few weeks' time, I hope the government will have done the right thing by us. As you say, I mean, all we ever want to do is look after taxpayers' money as best we can, and to save the taxpayers a burden, and that's what this particular project was all about. We're going to make sure that the budget speaks to the priorities that we put to the public this time last year at the election. We'll use the budget speech as an opportunity to bring people up to date with what progress we have made and the progress that we can continue to make and the progress we want to see this year. And so we've got a lot of unfinished business in the city, obviously. I mean, we inherited, I think it's fair to say, perhaps the most challenging set of circumstances. The previous administration left this council's finances in a state, but also the city itself in a state, underinvestment, and a lack of care. So we have to continue to put those things right. So we'll be continuing to press on with the immensely important work in the city centre, be that the Old Town Street project, be that the health project down in Colin Campbell Court, be that Armada Way. We've got a lot of obligations to try and green our industrial estate so that, as Councillor Borisdale is very keen on reminding us, there are three elements really to decarbonisation. One is tackling particularly the housing stock in the city, but the industrial stock is really important as well, as is the transport project. So the announcements that Councillor Coke is making around public transport are particularly significant and important as well. We continue to pursue our agenda in terms of economic growth. We'll be continuing to chase, for example, investment in hotels in the city. We want to see tourism continue to grow. We already know that this council's been very successful, the city has, in terms of bouncing back from COVID, both in terms of our retail in the city centre, but also generally in the local economy, with a huge spike in the number of new business startups, and our business stock is increased by over 20% since COVID, which is remarkable. Not reflected in Centre for Cities' latest survey, but then again, I don't really know what numbers Centre for Cities use. I think imaginary numbers is probably what I'd say they use. But anyway, be that as it may, we're making some good progress. So more of all of this in a future meeting. So I think what I would need to do now is to ask you please to agree the recommendations. These have been laid out in the supplement pack, on page 2 of the supplementary pack that you've had. I'm not going to go through them all because there are 6. I mean, technically it says 6, but there's a lot more than that because they got clause. So quite a lot of them. So before I put that to the vote, I just wanted to ask Councillor Lowry if there was anything else that he wanted to add. Are you happy enough? Okay. So we will then put those recommendations, which are recommendations to the council, don't forget. And in terms of council tax and things like that, we'll be putting all of that into the meeting in March. So all those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you very much. Once again, David, thank you for your diligence and your hard work, and we'll see you in a few days' time, hopefully with a smile on your face. But and we hope the government will do the right thing by you and us. I just want to slightly change the agenda around a minute, if that's all right. We've got an item on the folding in of LEP functions, item 11. I'd like to bring that forward now. Amanda Ratsey is here to talk to that, and she's been here quite a while and anxious to go and be more productive, I would wager. So if I could bring that item forward, and then we'll go back to your 2 items, Mark, in a second, okay? So the folding in of the LEP functions are on page 169 to 198. We've been allocated 20 minutes on our sort of guiding here, and I think Amanda's very keen that it doesn't take 20 minutes. So am I. Yeah, 2 minutes would do, because the report's very comprehensive and very, as usual, very straightforward, Amanda. So did you want to just, by way of introduction, just take us through?
So this is as a result of change of government policy. The government announced sort of about this time last year, they were minded not to fund LEPs going forward. And then they made a decision mid last year that they were not going to fund LEPs going forward, and the functions should fold into the relevant upper tier authorities. Now, that sounds like it's a big change, but actually it's not a big change, because the model that our LEP operated on was a very small team of 4 people covering the whole of Devon, Plymouth, Torbay and Somerset, and Somerset was the accountable body. So no money went through the LEP, although whilst it was a CIC, no, it was a non-trading CIC, it had never traded, so that all the contracting sat with Somerset County Council, and all the majority of the activity was actually delivered through service level agreements through the relevant upper tier authorities. So we have got considerable skills, knowledge and expertise of those projects, and all that is happening is the functions are folding, it says folding back into the local enterprise partnership. In practice, it's all folding in from the local enterprise partnership into the relevant upper tier authorities. In practice, it's been in the upper tier authorities all the way through. So it's actually in practice very little change. Do you want me to go through the functions? So the functions are the business voice, which is the growth board. We've had a growth board for the last 10 years, so we're strengthening the growth board. The economic strategy, we've had an economic strategy for the last 10 years. Then the projects, and then the projects are a list of projects which primarily the council delivers. Do you want to add anything, David?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Have you got any questions on this? This is very straightforward, actually, to be frank with you. Although, as a member of the board of the LEP, I wouldn't say that it's been straightforward. It's been more complicated than it actually needs to be, but be that as it may. Could I ask you, please, as a board member of the LEP, can you give me another one of your lovely dispensations, please?
I can, yes.
Thank you very much. As Amanda said, there's no money was harmed in the making of this transaction, right? Sorry, Chris. Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't think we can give you a yeah, I don't think we can give you the dispensation for that. So basically, this is happening, whether we want it or like it or not. In this way, this is how it has to happen. Could you please agree the recommendations on page 169?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so I'm now going to move back to item 9 and 10, which I propose to take together as one glorious miasma. And I will leave Councillor Coker to introduce it to us, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry Future Financing 2024-25 Revenue and Capital Programme. The report seeking recommendations to Council to approve an application to the Secretary of State for a toll increase and the Joint Committee's proposed Revenue, Budget and Capital Programme for 24-25, and to note the longer term revenue forecasts for 25-26. The Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry are operated, maintained and improved jointly by Cornwall Council and Plymouth City Council on a user pays principle, being funded by toll income using powers derived from the Tamar Bridge Act. The finances of the joint undertaking are effectively ring-fenced by the Act, and it is operated as a self-financing business. The Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry Joint Committee terms of reference require the cabinets of the joint authorities to recommend the annual Torpoint Ferry budget and business plan to their respective councils. The financial forecast supporting the 22-23 toll increase had not predicted the war in Ukraine and its global repercussions, specifically related to fuel and energy price increase and cost inflation that at the times has exceeded over 10%. Higher costs of energy, fuel, and high inflation have eroded the financial envelope that had been planned back in 2022 to provide a balanced budget for what was hoped would be at least a 4 to 5 year period. In the meantime, there has been no evidence of the anticipated return to pre-COVID traffic levels, with traffic at both crossings running at approximately 90% of pre-COVID levels. As a result, the undertaking has found itself with an identified reserve shortfall in 25-26 due to these circumstances. It must be noted to Cabinet that the Section 151 officers from both parent authorities have confirmed to the Joint Committee that there is no provision for financial support from the budgets of each parent authority, as other crucial services provided by these councils are already under considerable financial pressure. This report seeks Cabinet endorsement to recommend to full council that an application be made to the Secretary of State for the toll increase as described in recommendation 1 of the report. Previously £2.60 to £3 for cars and pro rata for other vehicles, and that the tag previously £130 to £150 and again pro rata for other vehicles. Subject to Cabinet endorsement of these proposed toll increase, then the report also seeks Cabinet's endorsement to recommend to full council that the proposed revenue budget and capital programme for 24-25 and associated annual business plan be approved, and that indicative figures for the subsequent 3 years 25, 26, 26, 27 and 27, 28 be noted. The proposed budget supports the delivery of the annual business plan, where the proposed revenue expenditure and capital works itself are essential to preserve the integrity of the assets and to deliver the service sustainably in the future. Details of the budgets can be seen at the appendices of the report. As a joint undertaking, a parallel report went to Cornwall Cabinet last week, where it was recommended for approval to go for full council. In summary, the proposed toll application to the Secretary of State will enable the parent authorities to set a balanced budget. The proposed revenue expenditure and capital works items are essential to preserve the integrity of the assets and to deliver the business plan, taking the service sustainably into the future. The Chair, I recommend the recommendations 1, 2 and 3 in the report. I would also at this point like to thank the members of the joint committee. This has been a challenging year for us. The hard work and dedication that's gone into looking at everything within this budget and how we maintain it. I have David Northey, our 151 officer, who actually provided us with the statement for the joint committee, and also Philip Robinson, who's the service director responsible. And like I say, I'd like to pay tribute to all of those that have played a part in this budget. So that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mark. Any questions? Any further things that need to be said? I mean, I think in summary, you're saying the cost of maintaining the bridge aren't going down, the number of passengers, travellers over the bridge are not going up, and we don't have funding settlements or that are either enough headroom in them or on medium term for us to enable us to actually plan our way through this. And so this is the basis of your decision. So, colleagues, I'm putting the recommendations, which are on 153 to 154, and I also need to put the recommendations that are on, sorry, I've lost myself now, on 103 to 104, yeah, and what was the other one? 153 to 154. I need to put those to you on block, if that's all right. We'll just have the one vote on those four recommendations. And these are recommendations that go to council, as Mark was saying, that Cornwall Council Cabinet have made their recommendations to their council. We will know if we agree these will be forwarded to our council for a final vote, and then we'll see what happens. So can I say all those in favour of the recommendations, please show? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. So I am now going to go to item 12, which is the Corporate Plan Performance Report Q3. This is in the supplementary pack, pages 97 to 134. Ross has come in, and you're more than welcome to sit at the top table here, Ross. And Chris Penberth is going to lead us on this as well.
Thank you, Leader. And this report provides the Cabinet with an overview of how the Council is performing against our priority performance indicators that were agreed as part of the corporate plan for 2023 to 26 in June of last year. So these are the indicators against our commitments at the point that we were elected. The key performance indicators detailed in this report are for the third quarter of 2023 and 24, so that's October to December. As I've said previously, this is a report that's in development, and we're using new tools available to us to present the performance report. And this is the first step in enabling us to add more national comparators into our reporting through our work with the Local Government Association LG Inform programme. In addition, where it has been possible, a longer time series of data points has been used to prepare for greater utilisation of control charts, which will help us to establish whether performance is stable and operating within existing variation and expected variations. This will prevent overreaction to normal performance variability, whilst prompting quick response to anomalies. In addition, we've used various data sources, for example, the Department for Education, Statistics and LG Inform, to provide comparators either local with our neighbours national or with SIPFA comparator groups to provide contextual reference points for evaluating our performance. The KPIs this is applicable to are listed on the front page of the report. I'd like to highlight some good news in terms of areas of good performance in the last quarter. The employment rate has risen by 2.3% since Q1 and is in line with our SIPFA comparator group and the national average. The number of antisocial behaviour incidents reported to the Council has decreased by 104 over the last quarter. The number of young people aged 16 to 17 in education, employment and training has had its first significant increase from the 2021 baseline, with 3% more 16 to 17-year-olds in education, employment and training. Repeat child protection plans have reduced by 2% in the last quarter. And as I mentioned earlier, some really good news on homelessness is that 332 households were prevented from becoming homeless in the last reporting period, an increase of 115 on the last quarter. The report highlights some challenges. The percentage of people accessing the Stop Smoking service who have quit reached its peak in Q4 of 22-23 and has since reduced by 6% at Q2. This is a set of data that's always a quarter behind, and part of our whole data is we're not always exactly on point. Key Stage 4 pupils achieving 5+ in English and Maths at year end of 2021, Plymouth was slightly outperforming the Southwestern national average. Since then, performance has dropped back below these comparators and shows a decline of about 10%. And dental waiting lists. Despite what Mr. Mercer might be saying, an additional 30 children and 315 adults have been added to the dental waiting lists in Q3 alone. What's interesting is all of those are things beyond our control, but where we have chosen to set indicators that matter to the people of Plymouth. And I'm sure that the Cabinet members responsible will continue to work across health and education partners to try and make sure that their performance meets the aspirations of the people of Plymouth. There are a small number of indicators that are listed as under review or in development. These are subject to ongoing due diligence prior to reporting, or are still being developed to ensure that the most suitable and reliable data is reporting. One of those is highways, and that's because Mark's been bringing in lots of new technology, which means that the work being done isn't measured in the outcomes and outputs that we'd normally expect. So we've been working with South West Highways, and we have now come up with a methodology which means that from Q4 we'll be able to report on the percentage of black road defects completed on time. Now I understand those are effectively potholes, but they are black road defects. And that's because of things like the velocity machine dealing with a number at the same time, so recording one piece of work, not necessarily 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10. So we are looking at all of those to make sure the figures we reflect are actually accurate. We'll also be reporting there, just so you know, on the numbers reported and the numbers completed and the numbers completed on time. So we are working on these to make sure that modern technology is tied up with what we want to do. During Q4, we're also preparing for some further reviews of the performance framework, and we'll be developing targets alongside new reporting. We will be making sure that all Cabinet members have a significant role in setting our ambitions for next year and part of the discussions of going forward on how we measure and report on those. I've already mentioned the LG Inform work. One of the reasons that's really important is at the moment we sort of speak into a void and say this is how we do compared to ourselves. We want the report to ultimately be able to show in every KPI, this is how we report and perform against other people, so that we can learn from the very best and identify those areas where we need to target more activity to improve the work that we do to support people of Plymouth. We've started using Power BI to pull our data sets. So for Councillor Dan, who's loving the world of AI, we're getting it all built into what we're doing. That means that although we've got a report on paper, as we go forward, we'll be able to put out a data set that is virtually accessible so that people can actually see almost moment to moment where those changes are, what that graph actually means in numbers, and take us to other points of reference, so that that will be better for us to do performance management with, because it won't just be a line, it'll be something that we can realistically understand and explore. And so to do that and to help us do more of that, we're going to be seeking to make more of our KPIs in line with data sets held by LG Inform, so that we can really tie up the use of AI to get a lot of this data pulled together, so that our team can spend more time looking at the impact of what that's telling us and working to support that, rather than just pulling the figures together in the first place. And on the basis of that, we're exploring ways in which over the next 12 months, KPIs where improvement is clearly needed can have additional narrative added that talks about action plans and work being undertaken to bring those KPIs up to levels which we believe are the levels that the people of Plymouth deserve, so that performance management ceases to just be a quarterly report and starts to be a tool that all of us are able to use to drive improved performance here in Plymouth City Council for the people of Plymouth, and actually do exactly what the LGA want us to do, which is continual sector-led improvement using an LGA tool to help back us doing that. So, Leader, I know you've talked about it on a number of times. I hope you're pleased at the way we are really seeking to integrate LG Inform and benchmarking in our performance indicators to not only say this is what we're doing, but this is what we're going to be doing better. And I'm pleased that we're already able to say that we're able to see some of those changes in the improved performance I've highlighted and the challenges that I've talked about. In doing all of this, I'd really like to thank Ross and his team, who have been seeking not only to do the existing performance reporting, but seek to move and improve the way we do that. And that's been much appreciated. I think that's it from me, but Ross might well have other things he wants to say, or members themselves want to talk about their own areas of indicator.
Chris, thanks as always for a comprehensive report. Ross, anything you want to add? Okay, thank you. Right, any questions? I mean, I think it's, quite exciting that we're keeping up with the new world of tech, and making sure that we are using it to inform and to improve our performance. So that's all very good. Well, look, if there aren't any questions or observations from members, I'll put the recommendations to you, if that's all right. That's on page 98 of your supplement pack. So that's that. We note the corporate plan performance report. All is in favour? There we are. Thank you. Thank you. Right, that's that done. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Ross. I'm going to move on now to leaders' announcements. Just a couple of things. We've had a good old chat today about the NMP, and exciting though that is. And we've had a good old chat about budgets and a lack of funding. But I think it's important to say that we have had some success in getting money through. And I think it's important with these sort of things to remember that these are, you know, there's a lot of money available to councils for challenge funding, but it is ring fenced to what you budgeted for. So it doesn't always, so sometimes, you know, people say, well, you got money in from the government to do X. And you say, yes, but it's actually why we need it for. But, you know, it is tricky. But I think it's worth celebrating the hard work of our officer teams, our staff, who have worked so hard to bring in money. So, for example, in addition to that lottery bid, we got the levelling up bid, we got the Freeport stuff, we got around about 100 million of external investment coming in over the next 2 years. So it's about 4 million quid a month for the next 2 years, which, you know, is great. I mean, I'm not knocking it at all. A lot of hard work goes into getting that money, but it's important to say that most of this stuff is top slice from money we used to have as of right and used to be able to determine for ourselves what the priorities were. So I think that's really important. But what this does do is reflect important decisions that we've made as administration to, and over a period of time now, to make sure that we invest in economic development. Right? Because a lot of this money's coming through that route. So one of the reasons we've got a big economic team is because they're not just an economic team, they're a property team and they do other things as well. So that kind of investment means that we get the hard work done and we deliver. But I want to celebrate the fact that, you know, we've won over the last 8 months, you know, nearly 100 million quid of external investment. We had a visit from Homes England last week, I think it was. Week before. God, was it really? Anyway, they came down. We had the chief exec of Homes England, Peter Denton, and his senior team, and it was really good to have them in the city. I mean, we did a big long walk. Well, not I didn't, but some people did. In some of our finest drizzle that we could lay on. But in that 4 hours, you know, we were able to give Homes England a real feel for what the opportunities are in Plymouth. And they tweeted about it on their Twitter feed. So they were excited about the opportunities that they discovered. So I'm thrilled about that. I've got a couple of announcements to make on the Freeport, if you don't mind. If you two finished, I'll just continue if that's all right. We've got the Plymouth and Devon Freeport has secured the Sherford employment land. I mean, this is really good. The Freeport's actually funding South Hams because it's in South Hams, it's not in Plymouth. So they're going to purchase this land from a housing consortium, which is then going to be turned into employment land. This is really important because it's next to the A38 and there's not a lot of it around. So this is really good. This is a really good thing to do. There's a £20 million being secured for green hydrogen hub at Langage. That's through Carlton Power. This is out of the first round of the hydrogen allocation fund. It's we're hoping that this will be up and running by 2026. That'd be great. And is actually a huge bit of news really for green energy within the city. We've also, by which I mean I'm on the Freeport board, by the way. Sorry, do I need dispensation to talk about this? No. We're not asking for anything from the council today, just reporting in. But there's 2 new direct developments happening on council land in the Freeport area. That's phase 2 development at Ocean's Gate. That's more industrial units and an innovation barn. Have you ever heard of such a thing as an innovation barn? I'm looking forward to it. Does it come with a thatch roof? I don't know. But what it will be as well as doing the stuff at Ocean's Gate, there'll be another phase of direct development at Langage. That's our 5th, right? So that's quite good. Mill Bay improvements as well. We started at Mill Bay Docks. there'll be strengthening of the dock to take more freight, which is important, and also, as well as for freight, improvement to cruise facilities as well, which we're expanding all the time. There is a problem on the horizon, I would say, about this, which is the behaviour of the national grid. We have everything lined up. We have private sector investment, we have levelling up funding, and we have willpower. What we don't have at the moment is a commitment from National Grid to plug us in anytime soon. And we're working hard on that. I spent a considerable part of this weekend lobbying a number of shadow ministers about this whole issue, because I think for the next government committed to greening of energy supply, actually a failure of capacity in the national grid means that a lot of the improvements that we want to see cannot be done. It's as simple as that, and it needs fixing, and it needs raising up the political agenda. So I spoke to Sue Gray about it, and I'm hoping that that will make its way to the highest levels. I also spoke to the deputy leader of the Labour Party about it as well. So I'm doing my bit to bother people about it. Right, I'm going to move on to item 14, which is cabinet member updates. I have been notified of 3 updates. So first of all, I'm going to go to Tom for the first one, please.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a few announcements today, just trying to outline some of the green improvements that we've been working on since Christmas. Starting off with the Youth Investment Fund. Derriford Community Park is set for further expansion thanks to £1.6 million of investment from the Youth Investment Fund investment. We're currently renovating the derelict old hayloft to provide rooms for educational groups to learn about nature, as well as additional welfare facilities for volunteers. A brand new wooden cabin building will be built, providing a year-round space for ecotherapy and as a base to explore the outdoors environment there. I'm also particularly excited that we're opening up another 40 hectares of previously inaccessible countryside to local residents, which will bring the total to a massive 146 accessible hectares. On another note, tree planting season is in full swing, with over 1,750 trees now in the ground across Plymouth so far, which is halfway towards our ambitious tree planting target for this winter as part of the community forest. The planting so far has included 5 standards and 100 whips at Ham Drive Nursery School, which I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, Leader, in your ward, where a group of children were able to help plant, mulch and water them themselves in their playground. I was also pleased to personally get my hands dirty in Devonport Park, planting 15 silver birch standards and a mixture of 8 maiden fruit trees to establish a new community orchard by the Soapbox Theatre. It was fantastic to see so many Stoke and Devonport residents lending a hand, including families and local youth groups. Thirdly, on recycling, in December I mentioned that I recently launched a recycling campaign to boost public understanding of what both can and cannot be put in the council's green bins. Looking through the social media statistics with our comms team, it's really exciting to see that over 80,000 people have since seen our Right Stuff, Right Bin graphics on both Facebook and Twitter. I also had the opportunity to spread the word further afield for a BBC interview at Chelsen Meadow. Number 4 on the list, nearly there. I wanted to do a brief update on Plymouth's Green Community Hubs, which is a new partnership project between us, the National Trust and other local organisations. They've been busy encouraging nature connection through urban greening, rambling, community composting, tree nurseries, bird box making and so much more. They're planning major events and an education programme for later this year. And then finally, we've just launched the Who's Who page on our Climate Connections website, which for those of you who aren't familiar, is Plymouth City Council's public-facing online hub centred around all things climate change. It will give organisations, businesses and groups a space to share and, crucially, to learn from each other's journeys on the road to a greener future. Plymouth City Council is doing everything it can to lead its way on decarbonisation, but we're only responsible for a small percentage of the city's emissions, and that's why we need to keep striving to inspire other organisations to do their bit. This is captured in a short video, which it looks like Jamie's got ready there, all about working with partner organisations on our path to net zero. Thank you.
Imagine a future
that is healthier and more prosperous.
with thriving communities connected to nature. If we all work together,
To tackle climate change now,
this future is within our reach. Are you with us?
are you with us? Are you with us?
Are you with us?
It was much quicker than I was expecting. Could I just ask a question about that? Whose project is that?
So the Climate Connections is a Plymouth City Council run website, so it's done through Lucinda Brooke and the Net Zero team. Essentially, it's our way of trying to inform positive behaviour change across the city, but we're quite conscious that a lot of it was us sharing our tips and talking about some of the things that we've done within our estate on vehicle decarbonisation. And we wanted to work with businesses to make sure they're sharing their journeys now. So I'll be posting the link online later this evening. But you can already see some big employers in Plymouth have signed up for it, and some smaller social enterprises as well. They outline their path to net zero. It's an opportunity for residents and maybe customers to look at what businesses are doing and hopefully to learn from each other as well. But yes, it's a Plymouth City Council initiative, but very much in collaboration with others.
Thank you very much. I suppose what I was going to say there was it would be nice to see a Plymouth City Council logo on there, Tom. In fact, generally speaking, on the natural infrastructure side of things, I think we want to see more visibility of the Plymouth City Council logo where we're funding stuff. I wondered how we got that message over to the team that needs to happen.
I think you've got the strategic director and one of the service directors in the room. I know Ellie will be listening. It's something that we have pushed for a long time. So it's great to have your endorsement for that.
Excellent. And I'm sure if we want to see this kind of thing continue and the City Council to continue to support it, then the City Council needs to be acknowledged. That would be good, wouldn't it? Because otherwise, members might say, no.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. Can I bring in, I think the next person would be Sally Crosswell.
Thank you, Leader. I wanted to come back to just briefly, the SEND internships, which I have actually mentioned earlier, but we are in place to actually have these 60 placements by the end of February, as we've introduced a new provider, Discovery College, who have specialised supported internships in the service industry and have worked with employers to create new opportunities. But I think what's really important in relation to the introduction that was given by Councillor Penberthy about the corporate plan and the KPIs is the increase of the ongoing improvement in the number of young people who are in education, employment and training, which is went up 3%. And Plymouth is now above the regional and national average for offering supported internships at a city level. And this is only the beginning. We seem to have more plans actually in place. And if I could bring into that as well, the Encore Southwest apprentices, the Skills and Post-16 team are also leading the way with inclusive recruitment, implementing a paper application and additional application support for our SEND young people and our care experience young people. And after a huge amount of interest in positions, they've been able to offer and accept 2 SEND young people who will be working in the near future and welcome them to posts. And this approach removes some of the barriers that exist for SEND young people and provided a really inclusive recruitment approach. And the team are working alongside the DWP, who will be able to fund any necessary workplace adjustments through the Access to Work scheme, which is really, really encouraging. The other thing I want to talk a bit about is that last week was National Apprenticeship Week 2024. And last week's National Apprenticeship Week was with the theme Skills for Life and was a great opportunity for the city to showcase what we're doing to celebrate the achievements of our apprentices, supported by our local businesses and training providers. Throughout the week, there was a real buzz about apprenticeships across delivery at Skills Launchpad Plymouth, in the job centres, in our schools, education providers, and providing community settings. We actively promoted the fantastic localised resources available to help young people and adults to access apprenticeships and opportunities, including releasing the latest Plymouth Apprenticeship Bulletin, highlighting over 320 current vacancies. A personal highlight of the week was attending the Apprentice of the Year Award, hosted jointly by Building Plymouth and the Plymouth Manufacturers Group at the Market Hall, where we celebrated 45 outstanding apprentices for their skills, high standards, demonstrated in their efforts and their achievements. These Apprentice Awards truly represent the very best of the two Plymouth high-growth sectors, construction, the built environment, and manufacturing and engineering. The event presented us with a great platform to shine a light on the amazing opportunities that an apprenticeship brings to employers, individuals, and the economy. And I have to thank all of our local employers and training providers who continue to invest and support our apprentices. As the Cabinet Member for Apprenticeships is my title, I'm delighted to be able to share a personal congratulations to everyone we celebrated. Now, I know that the leader is going to be particularly pleased to hear that during the celebration, Daniel Alford was presented the highly respected Ron Simmons Construction Trade Apprentice of the Year 2024, being recognised through his successful Level 3 Installation and Maintenance Electrician Apprenticeship with ME Contracting Limited and the Focus Training Group. Daniel actually said, from the first meeting of my employer, ME Contracting, at the Building Plymouth Early Careers Fair in 2022 to today, I've really enjoyed my apprenticeship, hands-on experience and training provided by Focus Training. And thank you for all the recognition, and I hope this award provides a springboard for my career. And I think I have to say it almost certainly will. And I'm sure you'll be delighted about the fact that the Ron Simmons Construction Apprenticeship of the Year Award is still going strong and is very much valued.
That's excellent news. Thank you so much, Sally. Jemima, you've got a couple of announcements, I think.
I have, thank you, Leader. Plans are really shaping up for this year's event season. I talked a little bit about it earlier, but I wanted to talk specifically about the British Firework Championships. We're working on a really exciting partnership with the RNLI, who will be the official charity partner of the championships this year in recognition of their 200th anniversary. And I'll be able to share more details about that probably at the next time we meet. This weekend, beyond the page, the South Asian Miniature Painting in Britain, 1600 to now, exhibition opens at the box this weekend. And I think, Leader, you and I hope you don't mind me betraying your ignorance too, we thought they were like tiny paintings, yeah. But they're not. It's the technique is the miniature thing, which I didn't know, but it's going to be brilliant. It's a major touring exhibition, which is exploring how the traditions of South Asian miniature paintings have been reclaimed and reinvented by modern and contemporary artists. And we have an in-conversation event with Hamid Nassar and Satnam Sangera. And this week is half term, so there's lots of exciting events on for some February fun at the box. Taking inspiration from John Acumphra's stunning multi-screen film Arcadia, there'll be a variety of free drop-in activities. You'll be able to marble paper and make beautiful dream books to capture the dreams or amazing daydreams that you've had. And the incredible local storyteller Abimbola Allo will also share the stories of some of the real-life families whose lives are documented in the box archives and who left Plymouth in the 18th century when the city was the busiest emigration point in England. Tom has already mentioned a little bit about the Youth Investment Fund, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that too in terms of the impact it's going to have for 3 of our youth centres. So the council was successful in its bid for a £2.4 million share of the £560 million Youth Investment Fund, which is a government initiative to provide every young person in England with access to regular out-of-school activities, adventures away from home and opportunities to volunteer. So the big ticket item for Plymouth will be the 2.4 million for the expansion, refurbishment and overall improvement of the Frederick Street Centre in Stonehouse, Efford Youth and Community Centre and Honecknoll Youth and Community Centre. In Stonehouse, one-on-one youth justice and targeted support work with young people will be expanded, and there'll also be dedicated resources for young people who have experienced care, including support, resources, IT facilities, life skills and fitness equipment, along with a new education suite. At Efford, they will be getting a brand new multi-use games area, a mugger, to increase sporting activities, while supervised access to basketball and boxing will be expanded. And at Honecknoll Youth and Community Centre, the current successful SEND provision and groups will be improved and expanded alongside a new digital engagement project aimed at creating a fun, informal learning environment for young people. We know that youth services have suffered cut after cut after cut over the past number of years. And so an investment of this size in our youth services is just a brilliant thing. We talk about wanting Plymouth to be the best place to grow up, and things like that help us to achieve that aim. Thanks, Leader.
No, terrific list. Right, thank you. I've got Sue Dan.
Sorry, Leader, I wasn't going to speak, but I do think, as we've mentioned the cost of living so much today, can I just give you an update on last month's figures, because they are scary, I think. So over the last 4 weeks, more than 3,000 people have accessed our online cost of living hub. The most frequently visited page was the Welcome and Spaces map, with more than 700 views. So we've got 70 warm welcome spaces across the city that are being frequently accessed. And then following that, now bearing in mind that this is half-term week and we did a lot of promotion about free things to do, that wasn't the next most visited page. The next most visited page after that was help with food costs, help with energy costs and mental health support. So the work that we are doing, not only as a council, because we have to give great credit to all our partners across the city, is still vitally needed. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be really targeting benefit take-up and trying to do some specific work to make sure that everybody who's entitled to benefit actually gets it. Because there are a lot of families now who are on low income, who are really, even today, beginning to feel the squeeze and don't take the benefits that they need. So sorry I didn't put that on the list, but I thought it was important to say it.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. I mean, it's still very much the prime concern of Plymouth residents. We know this from our own conversations that we have as councillors going around knocking on doors, and it continues to be the biggest worry for people right now. So it's good that we are trying to do something about that. Mental health issues are rocketing. Everybody's stressed and anxious about making ends meet at the moment. It's really problematical for people. Thank you. Well, that's, I don't think there's any more announcements from you folks, are there? I just want to bring you up to speed with LGA stuff, really. In particular, I mean, we've had some relatively good news on public health allocations come through. I mean, a real terms increase. If I could say though, and this is me being, a bit less than grateful, I'm still puzzled as to by the formula and how it doesn't reflect need. It's very sharply different, the gap between what you need to do and what you're actually getting per head of the population, and we continue to ask for a needs-based methodology. So our grant was confirmed at about 16.5, 16.7, which is about 300,000 more. 300,000 more, again, thank you for an increase, but it's a drop in the ocean. The LGA are continuing to lobby for multi-year settlements. We're the only, we're the most centralised country in the world, really, and most Western democracies. Yet, with all that power in the centre, we don't get told from more than 1 year at a time what we're actually getting. And on that basis, you can't plan. I mean, as we were earlier on, I was trying to work out on the Tamar Bridge whether, how many years funding can you confidently predict? And it's everything we do. So, that's a problem. I just wanted to go back to that public health thing. The totality of loss on public health grants since 2015, right, since we got that responsibility, we've had a combined loss, councils across the country, of £858 million, right, being spent with councils now compared with what was being spent in those localities through the health system previously, right? And again, there's no real excuse for that, is there? Because the health needs of the population haven't gone down. There's pressure everywhere, and services from general practice to dentistry are collapsing. And these public health monies were often seen as not necessarily not mainstream is the wrong word, but it was about tackling issues like health inequality, and like you say, how you can be tackling health inequality with a cut of nearly £1 billion in 8 years is, it's just unfathomable, isn't it? Now, that Gove made big song and dance the other day about giving us a share of between 500 and 600 million pound, which is, again, better than nothing, but it is still a drop in the ocean. I mean, LGA have not estimated, but gathered data from member authorities that actually over the next 2 years, we're looking at something like £4 billion short still. And that's incredibly difficult to make up. So this 500 million's, lovely, but when you think about what's happened to us, that's about 2.6 for us, and we lost 2.5 in local services grant this year. So we're really in real terms, we're no further ahead as a result of that trip. But what we are getting in exchange for that bit of Govey large yes is a new framework of producing productivity plans. This is on top, by the way, of the value for money studies that our auditors have to already do on us. I'm not sure where the capacity is going to come from in DLUC for all this additional work about examining these productivity plans, let alone us actually providing them with them. But there we are. Anyway, so I would say that we've had good support in Parliament for local government for our need. We've had a lot of parliamentarians speaking up for us. For example, Clive Betts, who was a council leader, of course, back in the day, used to run Sheffield after Dave Blunkett. He is an LGA vice president, so he's quite informed, and he basically raised those issues around the number of local authorities that are facing 114 notices. I mean, if you look at how many we're talking about now, in they reckon about 20% of councils are potentially looking at that over the next 2 years. It's really serious. And if you think about the fact that there was hardly any issued in the previous, 20 years. Anyway, we continue to rely on the LGA and Segoma and all the bodies that we belong to, and trying to do some serious lobbying about this. We're optimistic that the LGA white paper, which is going to be given cross-party to whichever government gets in after the general election, the first and foremost thing, though, is we need to fix the funding. Irrespective of the powers and the freedoms and flexibilities, the funding still remains a really huge problem. And of course, local government's offer to government remains the same, which is we can do a lot of the stuff that you do, but we can do it cheaper. My takeaway from this weekend we just been to is a statistic that the shadow local government minister, Jim McMahon, put out, which is that over the last 14 years, local government has seen 900,000 jobs disappear from local government. But at the same time, that same period, 900,000 jobs have appeared in Westminster. Now, what we're saying is that's money that was in wages circulating in local economies, and it is no longer doing that. To employ somebody in the civil service in London to do a job that a local government worker was doing is more costly to the economy overall. So our offer remains the same as it always is. We can do it cheaper, we can do it better, we can do it more locally, and we can do it to the satisfaction of the local community in which we're trying to serve, and we'll continue to make that case. Right, I think that'll do for today. Thank you all very much indeed for your attendance. Thank you very much for your contributions. And we will see you again. When are we next meeting as a cabinet?
Next Monday.
Is it next Monday? Good Lord. And what are we doing Armada Way? That's fine. We'll look forward to that, and we'll see you all then. Thank you.